The 4th of July is a day of fireworks, parades, and celebration. We remember the brave leaders who signed the Declaration of Independence in 1776. This document told the world that the 13 American colonies wanted to be their own country, free from the rule of Great Britain and its king. The American Revolution was a long and difficult war that followed this bold declaration. George Washington led his soldiers through great hardship, believing in the dream of a new nation. The victory of the colonists gave birth to the United States of America, a country built on the ideas of liberty and self-governance. It was a pivotal moment that changed the course of history forever. But what if that war had been lost? What if the Declaration of Independence was just a forgotten piece of paper? Imagine a world where the American colonies remained under British control. The 4th of July would just be another summer day, perhaps known as a day of a failed rebellion. There would be no grand fireworks displays celebrating independence because that independence would have never been won. The stories of heroes like Thomas Jefferson and John Adams might be told very differently, perhaps as cautionary tales about the dangers of disobeying the king. Our national story would be one of loyalty to the crown, not of a fight for freedom. Without the United States, the very idea of what it means to be American would be completely different. We would see ourselves not as Americans, but as British subjects living across the ocean. Our identity would be tied to the British Empire, a vast network of colonies and territories, all loyal to the monarch in London. Our sense of national pride would be directed towards the king or queen, and our history books would celebrate British victories and British culture. The unique American spirit of invention and rugged individualism might still exist, but it would be shaped by the traditions and expectations of our British rulers. Therefore, our entire calendar of holidays would look quite different. We would not celebrate President's Day because we would have no presidents. Instead of honoring figures like Abraham Lincoln or George Washington, we might have holidays to celebrate the monarch's birthday, like the Trooping the Colour ceremony in London. Thanksgiving might still exist as a harvest festival, but its story might focus less on the Pilgrims' quest for religious freedom and more on their survival as loyal subjects in a new land. The holidays that define us as a nation would be replaced by celebrations that tie us to the British Commonwealth. If America had remained a part of the British Empire, our system of government would be profoundly different. We would not have a president or a Congress in Washington, D.C. Instead, our laws would be made thousands of miles away in the British Parliament in London. While we might have local assemblies to manage daily affairs, the ultimate power would rest with a governor-general appointed by the king or queen. This official would act as the monarch's representative, ensuring that the American colonies followed British law and served British interests. The idea of no taxation without representation would have been settled not by war, but by a system where our voices were just a small part of a much larger empire. The rights and freedoms we often take for granted would also be shaped by British law. The U.S. Constitution and its Bill of Rights would not exist. Instead of having a First Amendment that guarantees freedom of speech and religion, our rights would be based on the British tradition of common law. This system has evolved over centuries and provides many protections, but it is not written down in a single document like our Constitution. The relationship between the government and the individual would be different, with a greater emphasis on duty to the crown and the state, rather than on individual liberties as the highest ideal of the nation. Our daily lives would be filled with symbols of British authority. The Union Jack flag would fly over public buildings, not the Stars and Stripes. Portraits of the reigning British monarch would hang in schools and government offices. Our currency would feature the king or queen's image instead of American presidents. The national anthem we would sing at sporting events would be "God Save the King" or "God Save the Queen." These constant reminders would shape our identity, making us feel like a distant but integral part of a global empire, much like Canada or Australia do today, but perhaps with even deeper historical ties. Furthermore, America's expansion across the continent would have happened very differently. The drive westward might have been slower and more controlled by the British government. London, not Washington, would have made the decisions about how to deal with Native American tribes and how to manage the vast lands of the West. The Louisiana Purchase from France might never have happened, as Britain and France were often rivals. The map of North America could look completely different, perhaps with large territories remaining under French, Spanish, or even Russian control, because the United States would not have been there to claim them as part of its manifest destiny. Our language would have subtle but noticeable differences if we had never broken away from Britain. While we would still speak English, our version would likely sound much more like British English. We might say lift instead of elevator, biscuit instead of cookie, and lorry instead of truck. The spellings of words would also follow British rules, so we would write color instead of color and center instead of center. The unique American accent, with all its regional variations, would have developed differently, influenced more directly by ongoing contact with Britain. Our speech would be another daily reminder of our connection to the mother country. The food on our tables would also reflect our British heritage more strongly. While we would still enjoy the native foods of North America, our cuisine would be heavily influenced by British tastes. Dishes like shepherd's pie, fish and chips, and bangers and mash might be as common as hamburgers and hot dogs are today. Afternoon tea, with its scones and small sandwiches, could be a cherished daily ritual in many homes. American culinary innovations from barbecue to Cajun cooking would still exist, but they might be seen as regional specialties within a broader British-American food culture, rather than a distinct national cuisine. Even the way we measure things would be different. America is one of the few countries that still uses the imperial system of inches, pounds, and gallons. Most of the rest of the world, including Great Britain, has adopted the metric system of meters, kilograms, and liters. If we had remained part of the British Empire, it is almost certain that we would have switched to the metric system, along with Britain and the other Commonwealth nations. Our road signs would show kilometers, and we would buy our milk and gasoline in liters. This change would have made trade and communication with the rest of the world much simpler. Our popular culture, including movies, music, and television, would also be intertwined with Britain's. We might have a version of the BBC, a British Broadcasting Corporation of America, funded by the public to provide news and entertainment. Our biggest celebrity actors and musicians would likely spend much of their time in London, the cultural capital of the empire. The creative energy that led to Hollywood's global dominance might have been shared, or even overshadowed, by the British film and music industries. Our stories would be part of the larger narrative of the British world, not just a uniquely American one. The impact of America remaining a British colony would extend far beyond its own borders, reshaping the entire world. The rise of the United States as a global superpower in the 20th century would never have happened. During World War I and World War II, the American colonies would have entered the conflicts from the very beginning as part of the British Empire. The enormous industrial and military might of America would have been directed by London. This might have led to quicker victories, but it also means the world order that followed would have been centered on a strengthened British Empire, not a balance of power between America and other nations. The Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union, which defined the second half of the 20th century, might not have occurred in the same way. Without an independent America to lead the West, the primary opponent to Soviet communism would have been the British Empire. This would have created a very different global dynamic. The spread of democracy and capitalism around the world, so often championed by the United States, would have taken a different form. The ideals of the American Revolution, liberty, democracy, and self-rule, inspired countless other independence movements. Without that example, the world might have fewer democratic nations today. Global institutions like the United Nations and the World Bank would look very different as well. These organizations were largely designed and championed by the United States after World War II. Without America as an independent power, the center of global diplomacy might have remained in London or Geneva. The United States' role as a global leader, for better or worse, has shaped international relations for nearly a century. In this alternate world, the British Empire would have continued to be the dominant global force, shaping trade, alliances, and international law according to its own interests and traditions, which could have led to a more imperialistic world. Ultimately, the story of the United States is a testament to how a single historical event can change the world forever. The decision to declare independence set America on a unique path, creating a distinct culture, government, and identity that has had a profound effect on the entire planet. While life as a British colony might have been stable and prosperous in its own way, it would have been a profoundly different existence. The world we know today, with its specific challenges and opportunities, was forged in the fires of the American Revolution. Reflecting on this alternate path helps us understand just how much independence matters in shaping the destiny of a nation.